For better or for worse, the Sacred Chronicles are back, and today we're going to talk about my first failed campaign with a group. Not necessarily solo, but this does apply to solo because I think it's going to be a great solo game, and that is Blades in the Dark. It didn't go well. Let's talk about why. Welcome back to the channel. I am Sacred, and this is the Sacred Art of Gaming, where we enjoy talking about tabletop gaming with an emphasis on solo play. Now today, we're gonna revisit my old Sacred Chronicles thing, and I'll do away with the gimmicky stuff. I feel like I'd have to really dive in, like get a pipe and stuff if I'm gonna continue to do that, and maybe focus more on the material and the experience. And what I learned from that experience, the good, the bad, the ugly. Now, so I'll keep it going, at least with the ones that I already had planned, and I just will do away with the gimmick and just, let me know your thoughts. If what value there is there, if there's no value, if I should, pivot slightly, change things in a way that would be better for you, the viewer, let me know. Now, Blades in the Dark. Would this be better if I showed you what I'm looking at? Possibly. We'll continue like this for now. So, little bit of backstory to this Blades in the Dark campaign. I think there's two things that are worth noting that also kind of doomed this in a way. One of those things kind of completely they're both outside of my control, but one of those things is just kind of, there's really nothing we can do about it other than just try not to do that again. My gaming group, we typically played at night. We tried something crazy. We thought for some reason we were going to play a game during the daytime. We thought we'd be able to work it out like on Sunday mornings or something like that, or maybe it was Saturday, I forget. Either way though, it changed many things, and it made things kind of more difficult than it actually made them easy. And it also changed the name of our campaign to Blades in the Day, but that part is relevant. So there's that portion. The other portion I think is worth mentioning is that my group primarily played 5e at this time, and still kind of does. So I say that because D&D 5e, there is a certain expectation that most of those players have, which did lead to some of these comments. Some of these comments may not make sense to us because we play different kinds of games, but whenever their expectations are coming from that, they're just kind of like, what the hell is this? So, there was that. I also don't feel like I personally was prepared to play something like Blades in the Dark. Something that I didn't really realize, and something that is really hard to put my finger on, and that is that I am not as good at improvising as I think I am. Let me explain. I can improvise pretty well on the fly whenever the information surrounding that scenario has been built upon by me and the players. I have some additional context to work with. I feel like I'm great in that environment. That's where I really thrive. I'm sure a lot of people thrive in that environment. It makes things a lot easier. The predicament that I ran into with Blades in the Dark, and I'm running into with other games too, even solo play, there shouldn't be a rush or a concern or a stress because you're just playing by yourself. But when I'm playing on camera and I don't want to edit so much that it feels not as genuine as I would like, that's where it does add a little bit of stress to it, because all of that time that I'm taking to think about something and figure something out, it feels less like you're there figuring it out with me. But if you are there figuring it out with me, you're gonna be sitting there for a long time with long periods of silence, and I don't wanna do that to you. So yeah, it's a little bit of give and take. So yeah, it's playing PbtA games and PbtA adjacent games. I'm finding that because of the move systems, which Blades in the Dark actually doesn't have moves, but it has a similar like strong hit, weak hit, miss, and sometimes it's not easy to think about what the hell is happening there. You may, pretty much anytime you're prepared for like, yes, I know this will be very likely a weak hit, and I am kind of thinking while they're rolling what this is going to be like, and it almost never ends up being that, and you gotta kind of figure something else out, and it can be a little weird. In addition to that, when you roll in Blades in the Dark, you're rolling because something bad is likely to happen. You're only succeeding like a strong hit with a 6, so pretty unlikely. It is a dice pool system, so obviously the more dice the better. And the weak hit range, I believe, is 4 and 5, and I believe 1, 2, and 3 is just a miss. So the odds are definitely stacked against you. Let me just double check just so I know I'm not saying the wrong things here. Yeah, Fiction First Gaming. I think that's Fiction First Gaming. I love the idea of on paper, and I also love this setting. This setting is amazing, one of my favorites. But something about this Fiction First Gaming where you're not rolling all the time and you gotta trigger an action roll, and that them triggering an action roll means that something bad is likely to happen. So yeah, so 4 or 5, they do it with consequences. 6 is a success, and 1, 2, and 3 is a miss. So there's that. So the players that are used to D&D and they get excited to, I'm gonna fight this person. I then have to make a choice. And correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments down below. This is how I see it now in hindsight. I probably screwed it up at the time, but they are excited to roll dice. I think what I should have done in most instances where they had an upper hand, I should have just not rolled or had them roll. Or I should not have had them roll, is what I'm trying to say. But then there's the dilemma of now they're like, well, what the hell? Am I just playing story time? What the hell is this? I want to see if I hit them and how much damage I did. This is really not that kind of game. So yeah, there was a lot of that. Now the flip side of that, which is I think likely what I did in most circumstances, is that I did have them roll where they were in a fight. They're is it the cutter? Yeah, the cutter's the one that's like the bodyguard in this game. They're like the fighter, and the fighter's going back and forth fighting some like red sashes or something, which is basically like Cobra Kai. And so they're going back and forth fighting, and maybe because her character was a cutter, maybe they didn't have to roll as many times as she did, because honestly, the more times she rolls, the more she's getting kicked in the face and tripped, and things are catching on fire because there's a lantern and all kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, did I make stuff up on the fly? Yes. Did it really create a gonzo, insane situation? Yes. Did they feel like the more things they did, the worse things got? Yes. And that is a strange feeling, especially for someone that's coming from 5e. Not me, them. But I suppose I could have done better. And the only way I could have done better is to have them roll less. And I don't think that would have honestly been viewed well either. Because then they would just be like, well, where they're just saying I do things and I just do them. I don't know. Maybe I'll give it a shot again someday with that group or a different group. Probably a different group. I don't think that group would really like it. I don't think they'd really appreciate it much. So that was a weird thing for them. Another weird thing for them was leveling up. So here's the cutter again, and the XP for the cutter, which I actually think this is interesting, and I think both of these things that are negatives that I have mentioned may actually be good for solo play, especially if you're not recording it and you don't want to have to think about it. So XP, every time you roll a desperate action, mark XP on that action's attribute. Yes, sure. So at the end of each section, yeah, it's kind of like Dragonbane in a way where whenever you roll a dragon or a demon or both, I forget, you basically mark a tick on one of your attributes, and that allows you to level it up, so it would give you more dice in this case. That part makes sense. Where they had an issue was at the end of the session, you're supposed to do like a powwow, like a group powwow, and discuss if this person did that or not. So you address a challenge with violence or coercion. You express your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background. You struggled with issues from your vice or traumas during the session. The vibe that I was getting was that this is so weird for us to decide ourselves how much XP we're getting, because why wouldn't we just always agree that we're getting the maximum XP every time? Sure, if you have no self-control like this, this would be the same type of person that you would have to look over their shoulder for every dice roll that they do. That, I feel like the same concept applies. But yeah, it was just kind of a strange thing that I hadn't really considered. I thought that was a great thing to do, but I mean, just kind of be honest. It's not. I think they're looking at it from a video gamey kind of like D&D style power gamer viewpoint. So yeah, those were a few of the things that kind of drove them crazy. And then the abstraction of like coin. They want to know like how much loot am I getting? So like tell me all the loot that I'm getting. And coin is abstracted in here. It just says coin. Well, I want to know how much coin. So then there is a table. There is a table for coin that breaks it down for you. And I started just describing the coin in that way. And I just don't, to be honest with you, I think with the game not being D&D, I don't know that there's much that I could have done. But I recognize that I could have done better, and when a game does fail, I think this is the only game that I consider like a failure that I've had. Everything else did get pushed to the finish line eventually, which is good for me. I'm excited about that because that's difficult. It was not easy. There's definitely games that had to go through many different parties. But yeah, this one was a failure. So of course I'm going to think like, what could I do better for the next time if I were to play this game again? Because it is a great game. Here are the examples for coin and stash. 1 coin is a full purse of silver pieces, a week's wages. 2 coin is a fine weapon, a weekly income for a small business, a fine piece of art, a set of luxury clothes. 4 coin is a satchel full of silver, a month's wages. So yeah, they do give you some examples. 6 coin is an exquisite jewel, a heavy burden of silver pieces, etc., etc., etc. It goes up to 10 coin. Liquidating a significant asset, a carriage and goats, a horse, a deed to a small property. So I tried to use these things as like examples, or just literally those things, especially in the case of like jewels. That's pretty good. But yeah, it's tough. It's just playing the right game for the right party never hit harder for me than it did in that moment. I feel like I always believed that, oh, you're hanging out with your friends, so they'll just kind of enjoy whatever. Maybe to an extent. So yeah, there was that, and then something that I thought would be amazing, which is the flashback system. The flashback system is really cool. I love that. So the flashback system and the Devil's Bargain. Devil's Bargain, they actually did like the Devil's Bargain. Devil's Bargain was really cool. But the flashback system, they never utilized it. They wanted to do the opposite of what this game does, which is they wanted to plan it out like they were in D&D 5e like ahead of time. So I tried to give them examples and ask them like, hey, just so you know, you can spend a resource, so you can flash back to have bribed the guards, or maybe gave the hounds some type of treat that puts them to sleep or something. And I think they were just too concerned with that resource. And then the game loop, which the game loop, I think for solo play, which this is something that I do plan on playing pretty soon. Did have a dear friend say that was her next recommendation, which was Blades in the Dark, which might be a nice warm-up for Band of Blades. So that'll be coming at some point this year. Do I have a little... No, there's nothing here that will help me. But there is... Yeah, this is character creation. Yeah. That is not what I need. But what I do want to mention is the game loop. The game loop for the game is excellent. It's excellent. I think it would be really cool in solo play. I'm actually more familiar with the game loop in this than in Band of Blades. And I would like to think there is a example. Let me find one before I just kind of speak from memory. Running the game, starting a score. I think that's what I want. So what happens, and they do have phases. I think that's, yeah, here we go. I wanted to remember the exact phase names. So there is the planning and engagement phase, which is, as you would imagine, planning for the actual heist. And then there's the engagement roll that you would make, which kind of sets things off. And then you go through the score. Okay, great. Let's just use this example score. I think this is kind of what I want. Which kind of makes it seem simpler than I really want it to sound. Because it's really just the planning. You can still do some planning if you'd like. And then your engagement roll is how things are going to start for the heist. And it just lets you know if you're going to start things off positively or negatively. And then once everything is done with your heist, you've gotten everything and you escape. In this game, if people die, there's like crows and stuff, they give it away, is now the downtime. And the downtime is an opportunity for you to deal with the stress that you accumulated as a resource during the heist. So yeah, I love that gameplay loop. And then you deal with like heat and stuff. I also love the idea of this for solo play because there is your character, but your character is part of a crew. So if your character dies, you can kind of continue in almost like a roguelike situation. Maybe that's not the best example, but you've built your crew. Even if your character dies, you can just be another character in the crew and continue with any crew upgrades that you've had, which is really nice. So yeah, it's just playing Sundered Isles recently just really had me thinking back on this, and I knew I did plan for this video at some point, and I just can't help but think about how fiction first gaming feels a little bit like climbing a tree to get a cat or something, and the cat goes out on the branch, and it goes, obviously the closer the branch is to the trunk of the tree, the more sturdy it is. And I think closer to the trunk of the tree is where things like D&D or Dragonbane or Savage Worlds, all of these games that are kind of, I guess, not fiction first gaming, but you're kind of, hey, there's a weird smell in the room, give me a perception check to see if you can figure it out, or something, some type of research or investigation, and just being able to trigger those moves pretty regularly, give more information, then they ask for a different roll to get more information, and that loop of roll information, roll information, roll information. something like this in Powered by the Apocalypse and Sundered Isles, Iron Sworn, etc., I find that I am reaching for that cat far out onto the branch, where the branch is getting very thin and I'm out there reaching further than I should. I'm too heavy to be out this far. I can't really go much further. And I feel like my brain is being stretched thin, trying to think about random stuff on the fly so regularly that I didn't personally build up to. So obviously the more you play the game, the more stuff you have that could be related. But yeah, there's just so many instances where things come out of like seemingly left field, where you're like, damn, I now have to figure out what this means in the fiction. And there's times where I sit there for like 60 seconds like, is there another table I can roll on or something just to give me like a hint? I think that's what I need. I need a hint, and the dice roll in like D&D, Savage Worlds, whatever, kind of gives you a hint based on that dungeon or something that you're in. So yeah, I am curious. Let me know your thoughts on Blades in the Dark and just those concepts in general. Fiction first gaming. I've been on a bit of a journey this year to get better at fiction first gaming and Powered by the Apocalypse. To be honest, I feel like I want to remove the moves, especially for something like Ironsworn, where I feel like, man, that would just solve so many problems. I love the elegant dice system, but if I just did that and I generalize everything, yeah, I'll talk about that in another one. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. I'm Sacred. This is the Sacred Art of Gaming, and I will see you in the next one as we continue to explore the sacred art of gaming together. Thanks for watching, y'all.